Welcome back to the MA English Cafe. I'm so excited about today's topic because it's something we all do, but very few of us think about how to do it well. Today, we're talking about storytelling secrets, how to tell a compelling story in English.
And to prove Jenny's point, I have to confess, I once tried to tell a story at a work meeting about a customer problem we solved. I got so caught up in the details of the problem that I completely forgot to mention the solution. My boss just looked at me and said, "Ben, what's the point of this story?" I got a good laugh out of it later, but in that moment, it was pretty embarrassing. It really made me realize that storytelling is not as simple as it sounds.
That's a perfect example, Ben. We often think storytelling is just for grandmothers telling fairy tales or for friends sharing funny anecdotes at a coffee shop. But the truth is, it's one of the most powerful tools you can have. It's a core skill in so many jobs. Think about it. A salesperson isn't just selling a product, they're telling a story about how that product will solve a customer's problem. A marketing professional is telling a story about the brand. Even in a job interview, you're telling the story of your professional journey.
That's so true. I've heard that if you can tell a good story, you can make any point stick. It makes information memorable and relatable. For art listeners who are working in more traditional jobs, a simple story can make a data-heavy presentation so much more interesting. Instead of just saying, "Our sales increased by 20%, you could tell the story of a specific customer who loved your product and why that led to that increase. It's all about making an emotional connection.
Exactly, and that's why we're going to break down the art of storytelling into simple, clear steps. We'll give you a roadmap so you can master this incredible skill and use it in your everyday life, and of course, for your English speaking practice. It's a great way to use your English vocabulary and make your English conversation more engaging.
I love that. So, what are the basic elements our listeners should be thinking about when they start?
The three key elements of any great story are the context, the conflict, and the conclusion. The context is the who, what, where of your story. The conflict is the problem or challenge that makes the story interesting. And the conclusion is the resolution and the takeaway. We're going to dive into each of these points in more detail with some examples.
This is great because I think a lot of people, including me, just start a story from the middle and then lose their way.
That's a very common mistake. So for all of you out there who want to make your conversations more powerful and your ideas more memorable, get ready to take some notes. But first, if you're enjoying this conversation, please hit that like button right now. It helps us reach more learners like you.
And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the MA English channel. Join our growing community of learners who are constantly seeking new ways to improve English and boost fluency. We've got so many helpful English lessons coming your way to help you with everything from pronunciation to, well, storytelling.
Okay, so let's start with the first step, setting the context. This is all about giving your listeners just enough information to get them invested in your story. You need to quickly establish the setting and the characters. You don't need to give every single detail, just the important ones. For example, instead of saying, "I was with my friend," you can say, "I was with my friend Sarah last summer at a tiny coffee shop in London." That's a lot more vivid, right?
Absolutely. It paints a picture. It gives a sense of place and time. And I think that's where my old storytelling attempts failed. I would just dive in without giving the listener any footing. The next step, conflict, is where things get interesting. A good story needs a challenge, a problem, or something unexpected to happen. It's the "and then" moment. For me, that's where the story comes alive.
And what better way to explain this than with a story? Then, tell us one of your stories using these 2 points, context and conflict.
All right, here's a short one. The context is this. A few years ago, I was hiking in a national park with my friend Mike, a brilliant but slightly directionally challenged guy. We were about an hour from the car and the sun was starting to set. The conflict was this. We reached a fork in the trail and Mike, with absolute confidence, said, "I know this way it's faster." I trusted him. We walked for another hour in the dark, and we weren't seeing any signs of the car. It was getting cold, and we had no flashlights. My phone was dead. We were completely lost.
Ooh, I'm already on the edge of my seat. That's a perfect example of a good conflict because it creates tension. The listener is thinking, what's going to happen to them? Now, let me share a story. My context is this. Last year, I was working on a group project for a class. We had to create a new mobile app from scratch in a week. It was me, another guy, and a very quiet, very reserved girl named Anna. She was really smart and she was doing the work, but she wouldn't share her ideas or speak up in the group. We were falling behind because we weren't getting her input, and she just kept quiet.
That's a great example, too. The tension isn't about being lost in the woods, but about a breakdown in communication, which is a very relatable problem. So we've covered the context and the conflict. Now for the third point, the conclusion. This is the most important part because it's the lesson, the resolution, or the main takeaway. It's the answer to my boss's question. What's the point of this story?
Exactly. A story without a conclusion is just a collection of events. The conclusion gives it meaning. For my story about Anna, the conclusion was that I decided to talk to her one-on-one. I asked her about her ideas, and it turned out she had some incredible insights that completely transformed our project. Our conclusion was that you have to create a safe space for everyone to share their voice. What was the conclusion to your hiking story, Ben?
My conclusion was that after another hour of walking, scared and cold, we stumbled onto a park ranger who was doing his final sweep of the day. He gave us a ride back to our car. The lesson, or the moral of the story was, always bring a flashlight and don't blindly trust a confident-sounding friend without a map. It was a funny and valuable lesson. Our listeners can use this simple framework to make their own real English conversations so much more powerful.
So that simple 3-step framework, context, conflict, conclusion, is all you need to tell a good story. But what if you want to tell a great story? That's where we can add some advanced techniques. The first one is using descriptive language. Instead of just saying, the trail was difficult, you can say, the trail was covered in thorny bushes and loose rocks. That's so much more vivid.
You're painting a picture with words. Another great tip is to build suspense. You can use phrases like, and just when we thought we were safe, or I had no idea what was about to happen next. It makes the listener lean in and want to know more. This is what makes a great English conversation truly compelling.
And what about using your voice? Changing your tone, speaking faster or slower, or even taking a pause can have a huge impact. Pausing just before the resolution of the conflict can make your story even more impactful. It's not just about the words, it's about the delivery.
That's a great point. It makes your English speaking practice so much more dynamic. Speaking of great delivery, another fun tip is to use common English phrases related to storytelling. For example, when you want to get to the point, you can say, long story short. And if you want to summarize, you can say, the moral of the story is... These phrases make you sound so much more like a native English speaker.
So true. So let's tell one more story to show how we can use these advanced techniques. Ben, you go first. Tell us a short story that's a little more dramatic.
All right. A few years ago, I was volunteering at an animal shelter. The shelter was about to close down because of a lack of funding. It was a stressful time. I was helping to clean the cages one day, and I found a small, terrified kitten huddled in the corner. He had been so quiet and hidden that no one had even noticed him. The conflict was that we only had a few days left to find him a home before the shelter had to close. I knew I had to do something. So I took a picture of him, posted it online, and wrote a heartfelt story about his shyness and need for a home. We used some suspenseful language, talked about his character. The post got thousands of shares. And the conclusion? That very night, a woman drove all the way from another town to adopt him. She said his story touched her heart. The most important lesson I learned was that even the quietest voice deserves to be heard, and a good story can be a powerful force for good.
Ben, that's such a beautiful story. It had everything, suspense, emotion, and a powerful takeaway. I'm going to share a final story now. My context is from when I was a kid. I was about 8 years old and I was terrified of public speaking. I couldn't even give a book report with my hands shaking. One day, my teacher asked us to bring in our favorite object and tell a story about it. I brought in a small, worn-out teddy bear. I was so nervous. The conflict was that I got up to the front of the class and all the words just vanished from my brain. It was a total freeze. My teacher looked at me, smiled, and said, "Just tell me about the bear. What do you love about him?" I started talking about the funny little stories I'd made up about my teddy bear, about our adventures. I didn't even realize I wasn't just talking to her, I was talking to the whole class. The conclusion was that I learned that telling a story, something that comes from your heart, is not about memorizing words, it's about connecting with people. It was the first time I ever felt confident speaking in front of a group. It was the beginning of my love for storytelling.
Those are both great examples of how powerful stories can be. They can make you feel something, and that's the whole point. We really hope this episode has helped you understand the power of storytelling, not just in English speaking practice, but in connecting with people.
Thank you so much for joining us. We would love to hear a short story from you. What is a story from your life that has a great lesson? Share it with us in the comments below. We're eager to hear your experiences.
And before you go, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the MA English channel. Your support helps us create more great content to help you improve English and boost your fluency. We'll see you next time at the MA English Cafe.